Welcome to a deep dive that'll really make you think. We're tackling time itself. You've given us C.K. Rogers the 11 Pictures of Time, and let me tell you, this isn't your typical, time flies conversation.
It's not just about how fast the years go by. This book challenges the very way we picture time. We think linear, clocks, calendars. But history reveals a much wider view.
And that's where it gets really interesting, right? You'd think time is time, but this book argues how we visualize it affects entire civilizations. It's not just about making it to appointments on time. It's deeper than that.
Exactly. If we only see a straight line, we might miss the cyclical aspects. For instance, the Vishnu Purana, an ancient Indian text, talks about a cosmic day and night lasting 8.64 billion years.
Whoa, 8.64 billion. That makes our concept of a long time seem tiny. It's like those old maps assuming a flat Earth. Maybe our linear view of time is just as limited because we can't grasp the true scale.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If our perception of time shifted, would we be more patient, less obsessed with each passing second? It's a fascinating thought.
Totally. So time isn't always a line. It can be a circle, a spiral, maybe even more complex. But here's where it gets a bit political, French. The book argues that these different views of time have been used to control populations.
It's true. The book highlights this early clash between Christian thinkers, Origen, who favored a cyclical view and equity, versus Augustine and Justinian, who promoted a linear view and hierarchy.
Okay, so imagine a society where you're told this life's hardships don't matter because you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. A linear path with rewards at the end. Could be a powerful tool to maintain control, right?
Absolutely. It makes you wonder whose interests are served by the dominant ways we think about time. Even today, if we challenge those assumptions, what new possibilities might emerge?
Right. It's like the book is urging us to look beyond the clock and question everything we thought we knew about time.
It is, and it goes even deeper, drawing a parallel between the invention of the mechanical clock and its impact on industrialization, just like the clock's standardized time. The book suggests the equation of time equals money is fundamental to capitalism.
It's so true. Think about how train schedules standardize time across regions. Technology shaping our perception yet again. But this time-money link goes beyond train schedules, doesn't it?
It certainly does. It affects how we choose careers, value relationships, even how we think about the worth of human life itself. It's a pervasive influence.
It really makes you think about how much that time is money mentality stresses us out. Always feeling like we're wasting time if we're not being productive.
Exactly. It raises the question. If we could step outside this constant pressure to be productive, how might our lives and values change? The book encourages us to explore that.
Which is where those alternative views of time become really intriguing. I was fascinated by how the book explores Buddhism's view of time as discrete moments, a constant flow of change.
It's a stark contrast to the linear view. And then there's the Jainist emphasis on direct causation, completely shifting how we understand cause and effect.
Right. They have this concept of conditioned co-arising. This idea that everything arises from a complex web of causes, not just a simple straight line from A to B.
It's like a domino effect, but with thousands of dominoes all interconnected. It challenges the very way we assign blame or credit. If our actions are the result of countless interconnected causes, does it change how we view morality?
That's a huge EE question, right? It's like the book is pushing us to consider. If our actions aren't entirely our own because of this web of causes, does it change how we view responsibility for our actions?
It certainly makes you think, and the book doesn't shy away from these challenging questions. It embraces them. It wants us to grapple with these complex ideas and see where they lead us.
This is already so thought-provoking. And we've only just scratched the surface. It's like the book is saying, hey, what if everything you thought you knew about time was just one small part of a much bigger picture?
And that bigger picture is full of fascinating possibilities. We've got to keep exploring these alternative views of time because they might just hold the key to understanding ourselves and the universe in a whole new light.
This is blowing my mind wide open here. It's like we get so used to our everyday experience of time that we forget to even question it. But this book, it reminds us that there are entire other ways of understanding time, and they can completely change how we live our lives.
It's true, we often take our assumptions for granted. For example, the book argues that just as the mechanical clock revolutionized industrial society, the idea of time equals money is deeply ingrained in capitalism.
And you see that everywhere, right? It's like we're conditioned to measure the value of everything in terms of time and money.
Precisely. Think about how the invention of precise clocks and timetables led to the standardization of time across regions before that time was often local and fluid, more connected to natural rhythms.
Oh, absolutely.
Right.
People used to tell time by the sun or the stars, but industrialization demanded a more rigid, standardized system, and that's had a huge impact on how we view time today.
Right, time became something to be managed, optimized, and ultimately commodified. That's where that feeling of constantly needing to be productive comes from.
Totally. It's like we're always racing against the clock,
Yeah.
worried about wasting time if we're not doing something considered productive.
And that pressure is directly linked to this idea of time as a commodity. If our time literally equals money, then every moment not spent productively feels like a loss.
It's a really powerful insight. It makes you wonder if we could somehow shift away from this time is money mentality. Would we be less stressed, more present, maybe even more appreciative of the time we have?
It's a fascinating question to ponder. What if instead of constantly trying to maximize our time for productivity, we embraced a more cyclical view, one that acknowledges the natural rhythms of life, death, and renewal?
I love that. It's like, what if instead of that straight line, we saw time as a spiral with space for growth, reflection, and even rest built into the very fabric of existence?
That's a beautiful way to put it, and it speaks to the heart of what this book is trying to do, to open our minds to the many ways of understanding time, each with its own implications for how we live, how we value things, and how we understand the world around us.
Yeah. It's truly mind expanding.
Hmm.
And speaking of expanding our minds, the book doesn't just stop at cultural interpretations of time. It also delves into the profound philosophical implications, right?
Absolutely. It tackles some of the biggest questions out there. Causality, free will, even the meaning of life itself. It looks at how our understanding of time shapes our answers to these fundamental questions.
Right. And it does it in a way that's both intellectually stimulating and surprisingly relatable. For example,
Yeah.
I was blown away by how the book connected the concept of time to the idea of free will.
It's a fascinating connection. If time is a straight line and we see ourselves moving along, it's easy to feel like our path is predetermined, but what if time is more fluid, less fixed? Does that open up the possibility for greater choice, for a different kind of free will?
That's such a great point. And it makes you think about all the choices we make, big and small, and how they might ripple through time in ways we can't even imagine.
Exactly. It's like the book is saying, hey, maybe you're not just a passenger on this linear track. Maybe you have the power to influence your direction, to create your own path within the flow of time.
That's such an empowering way to think about it.
Yeah.
And it makes the whole concept of time feel less like a constraint and more like a field of possibilities.
It is. And that sense of possibility is what makes this book so captivating. It doesn't just present information, it invites you into a dialogue, encouraging you to question your assumptions and explore new ways of seeing the world and your place in it.
I couldn't agree more. It's like the book is a guide leading us on this incredible journey through different cultures, philosophies, and even scientific theories, all with the goal of helping us understand this profound and mysterious thing we call time.
And that journey is far from over. There's still so much we don't know about time, but by engaging with these different perspectives, by questioning our assumptions, we open ourselves up to a deeper understanding not just of time itself, but of our own place within its grand unfolding mystery.
It's like one of the things that I found so fascinating about this book is how it brings together like these huge philosophical ideas about time with actual history. Like it doesn't just talk about time in this abstract way. It's about how people in different cultures and time periods actually lived out these different views of time.
That's right. And one of the most interesting examples the book dives into is this shift within Christianity from a more, cyclical understanding of time to a more linear one.
Right.
It's like a case study in how different ways of thinking about time can really impact power structures and how societies are organized.
Yeah. The book talks about this early Christian thinker, Origen, right? He was all about this cyclical view, and he emphasized equality.
Right.
But then later on, you have Augustine and Justinian, and they really pushed for a linear view of time, one that supported hierarchy and a more fixed social order.
Exactly. And it's fascinating because this wasn't just some kind of abstract theological debate. It actually had real-world consequences. A linear view of time, particularly when you bring in the idea of final judgment, like we talked about earlier, can be a really powerful tool for people in positions of authority.
It's like saying, yeah, things might seem unfair right now, but don't worry about it. Just wait for the afterlife. That's what the real payoff is. It's a pretty convenient way to keep things the way they are, don't you think?
Absolutely. And the book does a great job of illustrating how this shift towards a linear, progress-oriented view of time became so deeply ingrained in Western thought. Like, It's everywhere you look, from our economic systems to our ideas about morality.
It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it, how something as fundamental as our understanding of time can have such huge ripple effects across history. And it makes you wonder if those early Christian thinkers had gone with a more cyclical view like Origen. Would Western civilization be totally different today?
It's a really thought-provoking question, isn't it? What if instead of this constant push for progress and this focus on the future, Western societies had prioritized things like balanced sustainability and a stronger sense of connection to past and future generations?
Right. It's like this book is opening up all these alternate paths we could have taken,
Yeah.
all these different ways of being in the world that we might not even realize are possible.
Absolutely. And that's the real power of exploring these alternative views of time. It stretches our imagination, it makes us question what we think is true, and maybe even helps us envision a better future.
Totally agree. And the good news is the book doesn't just hit us with these big what-if questions. It also gives us some really cool examples of how other cultures have actually lived out different time perspectives.
Exactly. Like, it explores this really fascinating Buddhist concept called conditioned co-arising. Have you ever heard of that?
I have.
It's this idea that everything comes about from a really complex web of interconnected causes,
Yeah.
not just a simple A to B linear chain of events.
Yeah. It's like that butterfly effect, but on a way bigger scale, right?
Wow.
Every action, every event is interconnected with countless others
Yeah.
in this huge, ever-changing web of cause and effect.
Precisely. And that has huge implications for how we think about ourselves and our place in the world. If everything is interconnected, then our actions have this ripple effect that goes way beyond anything we can really grasp.
It's kind of both humbling and empowering, don't you think? Humbling because it reminds us that we're not just isolated individuals, and empowering because it suggests that even the smallest acts of kindness or compassion can have a far-reaching impact.
I think so too. It's like a totally different way of looking at responsibility, morality, even the meaning of life. And it's really just one of many mind-blowing possibilities that open up when we step outside of our usual linear way of thinking about time.
This whole deep dive has been incredible. It's like we've gone on this wild ride, not only through time itself, but through different cultures and philosophies and even scientific theories. And at the end of it all, I'm left feeling this profound sense of awe and wonder.
Me too. It reminds us that time is one of the biggest mysteries in the universe. I mean, we can track it with clocks and calendars, but its true nature is still a mystery, full of possibilities that we're only just beginning to uncover.
And as we continue to explore, as we open our minds to these other ways of understanding time, who knows what incredible insights and possibilities we might find.
That's an exciting thought, and one that I hope will stay with our listeners long after this deep dive is over. Keep asking those questions, keep exploring, and never stop being amazed by the wonder of time.